Hey guys, hang on to your seat. We are talking about 5 wide receivers I would never draft. And I want to add something to this. 5 big named top 10 wide receivers for fantasy football 2022 that I will not draft. We're talking big names, and I'm going to explain why I will not draft them this year, while everybody else is going to be telling you to draft them. So a big episode. You don't want to miss this one, and you don't want to miss any of them. So make sure you guys are subscribed. If you're here on YouTube, if on Spotify, iTunes, click that subscribe button for actual advice to win. Now, I'm not a white collar, 4-letter network analyst. I'm not going to be a cookie cutter bullshitter. I'm a guy that tells you how it is to help you guys actually win your leagues. If that's what you're looking for, make sure you guys do hit the subscribe button. The show is brought to you guys by manscaped.com. I love the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. It trims my balls very nice. I don't got to worry about nicks and cuts, okay? Lawnmower 4.0, go grab it. I also use their shampoo and body wash. Amazing product, guys. Manscaped.com. And to save 20%, use code SHOWERLINE20. We'll save you guys 20% upon checkout. SHOWERLINE20 is the code you want to use. And I'm telling you guys, you'll love the product. Go get it right now. Manscaped.com, SHOWERLINE20. All right, let's dive in this show. 5 wide receivers I would never draft that are big names. Let's get to it. All right, guys, let's dive into this right now. If you haven't gotten the 16-round draft solution, click on the link here below and get the 16-round draft solution. If you're on YouTube, or head on over to thefantasyfootballcouncil.com, or simply click on the Google and put in 16-round draft solution. It comes up. You don't want to miss the opportunity to win your league this year. Get the 16-round draft solution. It is the game changer. All right, let's dive into this here. I got a list here. 5 wide receivers I would not draft. Wouldn't touch them. Big name wide receivers I would not touch. So let's dive right into it. The first person is Justin Jefferson. Now, you're like, well, Joe, how could you avoid Justin Jefferson? I'll tell you why, guys. It's very simple for me. And there's a couple things. He's going to be consistent, okay? And again, this one point goes across for all these guys. I'm not drafting a wide receiver early. So I want to get that out as a point on why I'm avoiding these particular 5 wide receivers. I would never draft them this year, okay? It's really simple for me. If I'm not I'm going robust RB, and I may not get these wide receivers, and that's something I'm okay with, and that's something that I've come to accept. So why not Justin Jefferson? Now, Justin Jefferson last year had a good year, and he's currently sitting 4th on the consensus rankings in PPR amongst wide receivers. That's something I look at. The only time I look at consensus rankings is to compare what the Chiefs have them at and where I could potentially draft them, so where I can get the value. There is a ton of depth at wide receiver as well. There will always be the value at wide receiver. Let me give you a quick example here, okay? For example, last year, Jamar Chase was top 40 amongst wide receivers, right? Deontay Johnson was a 3rd-round pick. He finished top 10. Hunter Renfrow was pretty much undraftable. No one was drafting that guy, right? DEEBO Samuel was behind Brandon Ayuk, and I was telling you that. KUPP was a 4th-round pick. Okay, was a 4th-round pick. 3rd to 4th round last year. They had Robert Woods ahead of him, okay? I told you KUPP. I told you DEEBO Samuel. Draft him. I didn't even suggest draft Robert Woods and Brandon Ayuk. So going back to Justin Jefferson, I'm seeing him here, again, sitting 4th amongst wide receivers. Last year finished 4th amongst wide receivers. And no surprise that he's sitting 4th amongst wide receivers in the rankings. So he had 1,616 yards, 10 touchdowns. Now, what you got to understand is Adam Thielen, I want to get this point across to you guys, missed a few games. By missing a few games, that opened things up more for a little bit of a emergence. Let's say emergence, but a little bit of purge at the end there, or a surge there for Justin Jefferson. Now, Adam Thielen had a good year. He had 10 touchdowns, 726 receiving yards, 95 targets, and 67 receptions. Finished 28th amongst wide receivers in PPR. Now, Thielen is still there, and Thielen could theoretically still be the wide receiver 1 of that team. I always say, no way Jefferson is. And again, I'm going to keep talking about this. Jefferson is good, but 167 targets, will that continue for next year? Very possible. but you got a good running team. Dalvin Cook missed a few games. People have him top 4 again, top 3 amongst running backs. I'm staying away from him as well. Go check out the running backs I would never draft episode as well. Here's the deal. Jefferson, too high draft capital on him. Adam Thielen's there. Adam Thielen could theoretically be the wide receiver 1, was stronger at the beginning of the season, and again, at the end, had the injuries, tailed off a little bit, and then, Justin Jefferson really kind of took over. And again, Justin Jefferson coming off a couple pinnacle years, had 2 great seasons, 2 Cinderella seasons, looking really good, 1,400 receiving yards in the first season. He went up to 1,616 the second season, up from 7 touchdowns in his rookie season, up to 10 touchdowns in his second season. We are trending upwards, which is something that I like to see. The big question is, are we going to be trending downwards next year? That's the big question when I look at Justin Jefferson, and I'm not paying a first-round pick to find out. So predicated on the fact that he has been trending up, is a decline coming, Adam Thielen is there, and again, I'm not investing a first-round pick on a wide receiver. I'm going to be dodging Jefferson. And you guys can go ahead and draft Justin Jefferson, but that's up to you guys. I am personally staying away, okay? And I have my reasons. Second guy here I'm avoiding, number 2, wide receiver. I would never, ever draft. Time of this recording, he is in talks for a mega contract, and I wouldn't pay him a mega contract at this point going into his 7th season. This is not a rookie, guys. We're talking about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has been playing in the NFL since 2016. He is not young. Now, here's the thing with him. He has only finished, he's finished a couple. Actually, you know what? I can't knock him. He's finished 1, 2, 3 seasons out of his, 6 that he's played. So he has missed a few games throughout his career. Had a great season last year. The problem I have with Tyreek is, first and foremost, again, the first-round draft pick. I got to invest high draft capital in regards to getting him. Mind you, he's sitting 6th on the consensus rankings in PPR amongst wide receivers. Sorry, I stand corrected. He's 4th in PPR amongst wide receivers. Jefferson was 2nd. I was looking at standard numbers. So Tyreek Hill's going to be valued very high. Same with Justin Jefferson. But Tyreek Hill is extremely volatile game in and game out. So I am pulling up his 2021 stats here right now. When I look at Tyreek Hill's numbers from a game-to-game basis, what I look at is performance. I want consistent performance week in, week out. I don't want I'm going to have a 40-point game, then I'm going to have a 7-point game. I'm going to have an 80-point game, then I'm going to have a 2-point game. So that's something that I look at and something that I value when I am looking at wide receiver numbers is consistency. So when I look at his PPR numbers, which I've got pulled up here, if I put it in perspective here, week 2, he had a 5.9 game. Imagine drafting a guy in the first round, he has a 6-point game. That's your wide receiver 1, right? In week 3, he had a 9.7 game. Okay, so it's 2 weeks, right? I'm starting my season off. I've drafted a guy in the first round, and here he is now. He's gone 2 weeks out of the first 3 weeks where he's absolutely bombed. Week 1, he had 37.1 points. So I'm happy with him. So I'm obviously going to start him in week 2, puts up a dud. Week 3, puts up a dud. I'm like, okay, I'm going to probably bench him now because he's played 2 bad weeks. What does he do? He has a 47.6 point game in week 4. Okay, I'm putting him back in. Then in week 5, he has a 14.8 point game, which is safe. Back to 22.6, then back down to 12.7 in week 7. Then you're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of hot and cold. Right? Then he has a good game. Then in week 9, a 7.3 game. Okay? You're in week 9. And then you look, he has a couple other safe games. Then you look at week 13, he has a 4.2 point game. Okay? And week 16, he had a 3.9 week game. All right? And then week 18, which a lot of people aren't playing fantasy at that point, but 1.2 point game. Okay? So what I'm saying is that, let me just put this, he had 18 games, right? 17 to 18 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd say 6 to 7 games where he was completely not even viable, not even usable. You might as well have plugged in a guy off your bench, right? You're losing 6 to 7 games. That's a lot of games. That's a big chunk of games out of a guy you're investing a first-round pick. Now you're saying, well, Joe, no one's perfect. We always have down games. I get it. But Tyreek Hill's a wide receiver. Where I can get value at wide receiver, I had DEEBO Samuel. I got him in the 7th, 8th round last year. I was fine with that. I didn't have to pay first-round pick. I had Jamar Chase. I got him for value. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. I got him for value last year. I didn't have to pay a first-round pick for a wide receiver. And that's why you guys got to get 16 rounds, because I'm going to give you guys the value wide receivers that you guys can load up on and not pay a first-round pick on a guy that's inconsistent. So I would never draft Tyreek Hill, especially if he gets paid, incentivized. I'm going to stay away, okay? Number 3 here, you're like, oh my God, Joe, why? Why would you not draft Cooper KUPP? But that's the guy I'm talking about, Cooper KUPP, number 3. I'm going to stay away. And it's very simple, guys. Cooper KUPP is now going into, he's not a rookie anymore, guys. He's going into his 6th season as well. Veteran wide receiver coming off his pinnacle year. He will never, ever duplicate these numbers. These numbers that he had in 2021 were bigger than Michael Thomas's 2019 year and bigger than Antonio Brown's 2015 year. He is not going to duplicate 16 touchdowns, 1,947 yards, 191 targets, and 145 receptions. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to duplicate those numbers. And for that reason alone, I will not draft him. So Cooper KUPP to me is gone. He's dead to me in fantasy football. I'm just not going to touch him, not going to draft him. Well, you're saying, well, Joe, and I get this argument all the time, there's going to be a decline, yes, but still enough to make him completely viable to be a wide receiver 1. You could say that, right? Because he had such a pinnacle year. He had 439 fantasy points, Joe, in PPR. Even if that drops down to 390, I'm a happy person. Yeah, but you know what? People get hurt. And I'm not jinxing them, or I'm not saying anything bad, but I'm saying what goes up must come down. It was a perfect year. And, you've got Odell Beckham Jr. now. Cam Akers come back. Maybe they're going to run the ball more. Coming off the Super Bowl high, the Super Bowl hangover. A lot of teams have that Super Bowl hangover the year after. I'm not sold on Cooper KUPP this year. I'm going to dodge him, okay? You guys can do whatever you want. This is my decision. Number 4 here, DEEBO Samuel. Another guy I was high on. I liked him when Brandon Ayuk was ranked ahead of him, which was everybody loved Brandon Ayuk for the past couple of years. And I was telling you, DEEBO's the guy. Even when he came in as rookie, DEEBO's the guy. In fact, he was on my show. DEEBO Samuel was on my show. So just look up DEEBO Samuel Fantasy Football Counselor. You'll see the episode, right, on YouTube. This was prior to the season. So 1,405 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. Guys, 8 rushing touchdowns. I don't know what to tell you other than it's just not going to happen again. And I've talked about this in another episode recently. I'm going to be talking about players and wide receivers I'm going to avoid. This is another one, I'm adding, some other names here that weren't included in my other one here. But DEEBO Samuel is one I'm going to keep adding to the list of players I will avoid this year, simply predicated on the fact that he had a pinnacle season yet again. And also, Elijah Mitchell is going to come back healthy. He played 11 games last year. He only had 5 rushing touchdowns. That should go up. Elijah Mitchell is going to be more of a factor here for the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm just going to personally stay away from DEEBO Samuel this year. And again, he's going to be drafted very high, coming off this amazing year. And and you're saying I sound like a broken record, I know, but I want to emphasize the fact that players that come off pinnacle years are naturally going to regress. And you're saying, well, Joe, all these players are not all going to regress. I know. But there is other players that I will be drafting in the first round that aren't going to be wide receivers, then get value at wide receiver later. And if I hit on 3 of these 5, I just saved you guys, right? Because now, Cooper KUPP has that big regression or injury, and you're like, oh, well, I dodged that first round bullet, right? You're going to be in better shape. So my goal is so you guys win. So I'm not going to tell you what everybody else wants to. Everybody wants you to, you want to hear something. They want to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm telling you what you want to hear to win. Right? What you want to do to win, not what you want to hear. Okay? So, DEEBO Samuel, another guy I'm going to be dodging, 8 rushing touchdowns. Not going to happen again. To put that in perspective, guys, I'm going to put this in perspective for you with the 8 rushing touchdowns. Okay? I'm going to pull up running backs right now, and I'm going to filter here by rushing touchdowns. 8 rushing touchdowns for DEEBO Samuel. That would have put him at top 10 amongst running backs in rushing touchdowns, tied with Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette, along with Melvin Gordon and James Robinson. All tied for 9th last year amongst running backs in rushing touchdowns. So Josh Jacobs had 9, Derrick Henry had 10, but Derrick Henry played 8 games, which is phenomenal. And he was still top 10 in regards to a lot of things. So here's the deal. DEEBO Samuel is not going to duplicate those numbers. Not going to happen. Great player. I'm avoiding him. Everybody's going to be jumping on him. When they jump on, I get off, right? Simple. And the final guy here, and it's mind-boggling to me that these guys have the audacity, the mainstream sheep have the audacity to even put this guy in the top 10. A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown does not deserve to be in the top 10 amongst the consensus rankings. They should be ashamed of themselves for even offering this. A.J. Brown last year crapped the bed. Period. Okay? 869 yards. What is that? 5 touchdowns. 180 PPR fantasy points. Okay? I don't even know where that finished. I think he finished 30. Yeah, I got it here. 32nd amongst wide receivers. This was a guy everybody said top 10. The problem with A.J. Brown isn't necessarily A.J. Brown. It's the fact that Ryan Tannehill does not throw a lot. And I warned you this prior to the season. I said Ryan Tannehill was like 17th in passing attempts in, the 2020. Going into 2021, it's not going to be good for A.J. Brown. And I was right, because he only had 105 targets. And that's even with Derrick Henry out half the season. 105 targets, 63 receptions, 869 yards, 5 touchdowns, okay? He peaked at 106 targets. That was in 2020. And yet the mainstream sheep continue and have the audacity to save face to put A.J. Brown in the top 10. Did you not learn your lesson? This guy is not a top wide receiver. He's just not going to get the volume to be a top wide receiver. We saw it 3 years in a row. Okay, I'm going to pull up here where Tannehill again finished in regards into in attempts here, and Tannehill just does not throw the ball a lot, and that's the thing about him. He was 12th in attempts with 531. So yeah, a little bit better than the 2020 season, but still, he's not going to throw the ball as much as Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, or some of those guys. He's just not going to do it. So, you look at targets, you look at volume, and it's just not going to be there for A.J. Brown. So on a run-first team where I think Derrick Henry is going to absolutely run wild again this year. So A.J. Brown, another guy I will never, ever draft, and you're going to have to pay for him yet again because he's 7th on the consensus rankings on the Sheepses, and, I'm going to be avoiding him. So, again, big names here, guys. This is a little overwhelming, I know, but Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, DEEBO Samuel, A.J. Brown, 5 wide receivers I'll be avoiding. I'm not investing in early draft capital on guys that I know are going to regress. I know are coming off pinnacle years, and it's not going to do it, period. All right? So make sure you guys are subscribed, thumbs up, get the 16-round draft solution. You will win your leagues once you get it. I have huge testimonials. Just DM me at Fantasy Football Counselor on Instagram. I'll give it to you. I'll give you some testimonials. And, yeah, guys, I appreciate you guys being here, and fantasy football doesn't end here when people are taking time off. Make sure you guys are subscribed. I'm out.